Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. Hello, everybody. Hello. God bless you all. God bless you all. Okay, so I'm still kind of getting used to, this. So, um, bear with me really quickly. Hmm. All right. How is everybody doing? Tonight we're gonna read our first book reading. It's Eli. It is. I don't even know if you can see it too good. You can't, no, there you go. That book. That book. We're gonna be doing this book, Eli. We're gonna just do the first chapter, unless God bless you, Titi Leslie. Unless everyone wants to do the next chapter. So, with that being said, I'm also gonna go ahead and put down a poll, um, saying, is this a good time? I don't know. Should we do this reading every day or every other day? Well, let's just see. Is this a good time for the book readings? And then that one will be yes. Hold on, guys. I just want to ask this really quickly. I think I created a poll in. So I'm gonna activate that and see here. So I'll just put down a little poll. Is this a good time for the book readings? Yes or no? Let me know because I want to do this more. I want to do more videos of the books so we can read this book, then go on to do other books. I have the Dark Powers collection. I have the Elijah Project. I have Left Behind the Kids. I have the Chronicles of Narnia. We have Bible studies. We have a couple different books that are Christian that I haven't read just yet. Um, so I'll have to read those and make sure they're okay. So I see 100% yes, so that's good. Okay, so this is a good time to do the reading. So we'll go ahead and start the book. This is Eli, a novel by Bill Myers. So on the first page, that's something right there. It says, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that you might have life and have it to the full. Jesus Christ." All right. So we're going to go ahead and start part 1 of Eli by Bill Myers. Chapter 1. Monday was an inconvenient time to die. Come to think of it, Tuesday through Sunday weren't all that agreeable either. Conrad Davis had too many important things to do, too many fires to put out, too many producers to plead with, cajole, and if necessary, circumvent. Not interesting. Too cerebral. What were they talking about? Did they honestly think TV audiences were that stupid? "Give us another multibirth story," they said. "Those Makahi subtletes, don't they have a birthday coming up? Or how about another psychic piece?" Some mother visited by her dead daughter. Those always work. Guys, Conrad glanced around the table and the smoke-filled war room. He could already feel the back of his neck beginning to tighten. We're talking about a major scientific breakthrough. But the other producers of the primetime news magazine, Up Front, continued without hearing. Or how about another cripple story? Suggested Peggy Martin, one of the few females on staff. Some guy in a wheelchair climbing Mount Everest or something. Guys, we did that last November. Guys, listen, Connie. It was Phil Harrison, the show's exec. He took a drag of his cigarette and motioned to the monitor where they just viewed a rough cut of Conrad's segment. All we're saying is that this piece is too cerebral. I mean, parallel universes? Come on, who cares? Leo Singer, a rival producer, snickered. Next time, he'll be doing a piece on quantum physics. The rest of the room chuckled. It was supposed to be good-natured. But Conrad knew that nothing in this dog-eat-dog world of TV journalism was good-natured. One or two missteps, like producing a worthless segment that no one cared about, could spell disaster. Especially with 5,000 kids, half his age, waiting in the wings for his job. Is that what you would have said about the Wright brothers at Kitty Hawk? Conrad argued. Or the moon landing? Or the invention of the light bulb? Is that too cerebral? What we're talking about is the existence of other realities right here, beside our own. Worlds identical to ours, but with minor or sometimes major differences. Worlds we can't even see, another producer pointed out. How convenient, Singer sighed. Peggy Martin added, and worlds that have no effect upon the lives of our viewers. Conrad glanced at the faces around the table. He was going down for the count, and his colleagues, better known as competitors, were doing their best to keep him there. But he'd been in this position 100 times before, refusing to dish out pablum for the masses, insisting upon truth and relevancy. That's how he earned the 2 Emmys and those countless other awards. Connie, it was Harrison again. This professor that you interviewed, what's his name? Endo. And all this Professor Endo has is a theory, right? Plus support from the top world physicists, Conrad corrected. Not to mention some staggering mathematical formulas. Oh, mathematics. That'll kick up the ratings, Singer scoffed. Others around the table agreed. The tension from Conrad's neck crept into the base of his skull. Harrison continued, if there was something tangible, something you could show on tape, then you'd have a story. But this... Harrison shook his head and dropped his cigarette into the half-empty can of Diet Coke. It hissed quietly as he turned to the next producer. Wolf, how's that toxic waste segment coming? The meeting had been less than 2 hours ago, and Conrad was already back on the 101, heading north out of Los Angeles. Professor Endo lived an hour outside the city, in the town of Camarillo. If they wanted something tangible, he'd get something tangible. Not because this story was a great passion of his, but because he needed it. Despite his 25 years in news, despite past accolades, a setback like this could seriously cripple a career. That's how the business was. There was no resting on your laurels. You're only as good as your last segment. And if your last segment was a failure, it had started to rain. The first time since early April. Conrad reached over and turned on his wipers. The blades had rotted from last summer's sun, and their first few passes left dirty smears. How ironic. Here he was, driving a $72,000 Jaguar, but couldn't find the time to replace its wiper blades. But that's how it was with everything in his life. Too busy winning the prizes to enjoy them. And he had won them all. Everything he'd ever wanted and more. Great job, great pay, esteem from his peers, plenty of toys, beautiful wives, although a few more than he'd intended. And the list went on and on. Yet, over the past several years, the list had begun to grow more and more meaningless. And though he tried his best to ignore it, an empty hollowness had begun gnawing and eating away at him. He'd won the game, all right. The only problem was that neither the victory nor the prizes meant anything. He pumped the washer fluid a few times, and the smearing on the windshield thinned. Glancing at his speedometer, he eased back to 70. Beside the oil that had accumulated on the pavement these many rainless weeks, there was also the reoccurring amnesia Southern Californians suffer whenever it comes to remembering how to drive on wet roads. He'd been in several fender benders since moving to LA. Many of them thanks to the rain. He rolled his head, trying to work out the tension in his neck. He pulled a bottle of Motrin from his coat pocket, popped another handful into his mouth, and glanced around for something to wash them down. Nothing. Just a couple of empty Taco Bell bags, some wadded up Big Mac wrappers, and a stale bag of potato chips. Ah, the glamorous life of TV. The glamorous life of a TV reporter. He held the pills on his tongue until he accumulated enough saliva to swallow one. Then repeated the process for the next, and the next, and the next. Each one going down a little harder than the last. A sign read, 23 Freeway North. Good. Just a couple more miles, then down a steep grade into Camarillo. He'd already put in a call to his favorite cameraman, Ned Burton, as well as the lighting and sound guys to meet him there. And before that, to Professor Endo, who was only too happy to oblige with another interview. Something tangible? The doctor had asked in his faint Japanese accent, which I can't do, so I'm not going to try. Exactly, Conrad said. Your theories and formulas, they're all very interesting, but we need something we can show on tape. Something that audience can grasp. Certainly, that will be no problem. Really? Like what? Eyewitnesses? People who have seen these? The old man chuckled. I'm afraid that even if there are eyewitnesses to such universes, you would find them locked up in insane asylums or involved in drug rehab programs. Then what? Conrad asked. How can you physically prove the existence of parallel universes if no one has seen them? It is an old experiment, really. I am sorry that I didn't mention it to you before. What do you need to set it up? Oh, I have all that is necessary at the lab. Just a board with 2 small slits cut into it and a low-powered laser. That's it. That is all. We shine the laser into the 2 slits and record how many slits of light appear on the wall behind it. I don't understand. 2 slits in the board will cast 2 slits on the wall. Actually, they'll cast several more than 2. Several? That's impossible. You will see for yourself. And if we cut 2 more slits in the board, how many will appear on the wall? Conrad frowned. I'd say 4. But you're going to tell me twice as many or whatever the 2 slits were. Actually, with 4 slits, there will only be half as many bands of light as if there were only 2 slits. That's crazy. Yes, if you're thinking in terms of a single universe, but ask today's best scientific minds. Stephen Hawking and others, they will say invisible light beams from other worlds similar to ours that are involved in the very same experiment at the very same time are actually interfering with some of our beams. And you can prove this. I shall be waiting for you in the lab. Even as he thought over the conversation, Conrad shook his head. To think there was another one of him traveling to another Camarillo to meet with another professor at this exact same moment, it was incomprehensible. And not just one of him, but millions, all identical. Well, not exactly identical, because according to Endo, each of his counterparts still had a free will to make different decisions along the way. One Conrad Davis could have waited to ride with his crew. Another could have agreed with his boss to cancel the segment. Or another could have decided to pursue philosophy in college instead of journalism. And on it went. The possibilities, infinite. Then there was the matter of time. It is my personal belief, Endo had said, that these various realities may also be traveling at different velocities. For some, an entire lifetime of 70 to 80 years may be lived in just a few of our hours. For others, it may just be the opposite. You're telling me that there's someone exactly like me in another reality who's only living for a few hours? A few hours by our standards, yes. But by his, it will be the full 80 years. No wonder Harrison and the others thought the story was over everyone's head. But if this sort of thing could be proven in the lab and actually captured on videotape, the rain came down harder, and he turned the wiper speed to high. Conrad was nearly 50 years old, but the methodic swish, 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 swish of the wiper blades still brought up warm memories of his childhood in Washington State, where the sound of windshield wipers was a part of many a car trip. He crested the ridge and started down the steep grade into Camarillo. Even shrouded by clouds, it was a beautiful sight. The coastal mountains rose on either side, giving one last burst of rock and cliff before dropping suddenly into the flat coastal plain 700 feet below. In the distance, the furrowed fields of onions and strawberries stretched all the way to the ocean, or at least as far as the newest housing development that encroached upon them. Swish, 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 swish. The left lanes of traffic had slowed, so he threw a look over his shoulder and pulled into the far right, where there was less congestion. He glanced up through the windshield. It was still there. Up to the left, the jagged rock formation that looked like the profile of a noble Indian surveying the valley. Being the first to spot it was a favorite pastime of Suzanne and little Julia whenever they took their Sunday drives up the coast. Sunday drives up the coast. One of the few bribes that had actually worked in luring Suzanne away from church. She had been a good woman, the best he had, committed to her family at any cost. Granted, she may have been a little fanatical in the faith department, but her beliefs in God posed no real threat for them. He gave her her space, and she gave him his. And, truth be told, the older he got, the more wisdom he saw in some of her God talk. God. If all this multi-world business was true, it would be interesting to see how the theologians would try and squeeze him into the picture. And what about the great religious leaders? What about Jesus Christ? If, as Suzanne had always insisted, this world needed to be saved, then didn't all these similar worlds need to be saved as well? Again, Conrad shook his head. The implications were staggering. He could smell the mixture of dust and water that came with the first rain. Under that, the faint aroma of onions wafting up from the valley. He smiled, almost sadly, as he remembered little Julia holding her nose, complaining about the smell. Those had been good times. Some of the best. In fact, if he could pick one season in his life to freeze and forever live in, it would be... The blast of an air horn jarred Conrad from his thought. He glanced up at his mirror and saw a big rig approaching from behind, flashing its high beams. Come on, he thought. No one's in that big of a hurry. Sure, he'd move into the truck lane, but he was already exceeding the speed limit. Besides, there was traffic directly ahead, so what was the big... The horn blasted again. Longer. Closer. Conrad looked back into the mirror. The truck was rapidly approaching. In a matter of moments, it would be on Conrad's tail, trying to intimidate him. But Conrad Davis was not so easy to intimidate. More blasting. "What's your problem?" Conrad mouthed the words into the mirror, raising his hands, motioning to the traffic around them. "What do you want me to do?" Then he saw the driver. A kid. He wasn't looking at Conrad. Instead, he was fighting something in the cab. Perhaps stomping on foot pedals, or wrestling with the wrestling with the gear shift. Conrad couldn't tell for certain. He didn't have to, because when the young driver finally looked up, Conrad saw the terror in the boy's eyes. Conrad quickly looked to the left, searching for a way to slip into the adjoining lane and out of the truck's path. There was none. All three lanes were packed. The horn continued to blast. The truck was nearly on top of him. So close, Conrad could no longer see the boy, only the big rig's aluminum grill. Up ahead, about 30 feet, a cement truck lumbered its way down the grade. Conrad pushed back his panic, looking for some way out. He glanced to the right, to the emergency lane. Suddenly, the Jaguar shuddered and lunged forward. The rig had hit him hard, throwing his head forward, then back. Instantly, the car began picking up speed. Conrad hit the brakes. They did no good, only threw him into a screaming skid, making it harder to steer. Excuse me. Sorry. My fan just blew the pages and now I lost my spot. Okay, here it is. Conrad hit the brakes. They did no good, only threw him into a screaming skid, making it harder to steer. The cement truck lay 25 feet ahead now, rapidly drawing closer. Again, Conrad looked to the right. The lane was narrow, with a steep rock wall rising beside it. A wall that a more experienced big rig driver might have used to slide against and slow down. But this kid was not experienced. They continued picking up speed. The cement truck was 15 feet away. If Conrad was to act, it had to be now. He cranked the wheel hard to the right, but the Jaguar swerved to the right. The big rig followed. The kid had lost control. He was going into a skid, jackknifing. As he did, he continued shoving Conrad forward, but forward into the emergency lane and toward the rock wall. Conrad fought the wheel. Tires shrieked and smoked. The horn blasted. He struggled with all of his strength to turn the car back onto the road, but it was too wet. The surface too slick. The Jaguar hit a small curb at the edge of the emergency lane. Suddenly it was airborne. The wheel turned easily now, but it made no difference. The rock wall loomed ahead, filling Conrad's vision. When he struck it, the explosion roared in his ears. He was thrown forward, metal crushing around him. The airbag deployed, but nothing would stop his headlong rush at the rock. "My God!" he screamed, lifting his hands against the jagged wall as it crashed through his windshield. But he could not duck. He could not move. And then there was nothing. 27-year-old Julia Davis Preston woke with a start. It took several moments to get her bearings as she glanced around the dimly lit 757 cabin. She had just had another dream about her father. The hallway dream. It didn't come often, but when it did, it always left her a little weak and shaken. In the dream, she was a girl of 5 dressed in a chiffon party gown. She wore flowers in her hair, and in the more vivid dreams, she could actually smell them. They were magnolias from the tree at their home in Pasadena. As always, she had been groping her way down the long, dimly lit hallway. As always, her father's dark walnut door waited at the far end. And as always, it was closed. "Daddy!" she called. "Daddy, I'm scared." She knew he was there. He had to be. She could hear the muffled voices, the wisps of conversation. "Daddy, please." And the laughter. There was always laughter. "Daddy!" She ran her hand along the wood paneling. The laughing grew louder. "Daddy!" She could barely see the door at the frightened tears welling up in her eyes. "Daddy!" Then she arrived. With trembling fingers, she reached for the doorknob. She could feel the cold brass in her hands as she began turning it further and further until Julia awoke. Sometimes she opened the door. Sometimes she even entered the room. But not tonight. Tonight, she had remained outside in the hallway. She never knew if the details of the dream were based on actual fact or if they were something her subconscious had manufactured. It didn't matter. Regardless of whether the details were fact or fantasy, the substance was just as true. She looked down and smoothed her tweed skirt. The cabin had grown a little chilly, and she thought of rising and grabbing her matching jacket from the overhead compartment. But the old gentleman in the aisle seat beside her was sleeping too peacefully to disturb. Besides, the jacket wrinkled easily, and it might be better to give it a head start on what could be a very long day. Julia turned and looked out the window. In the darkness, the lights of small Nebraska town twinkled up at her. As she stared, her thoughts drifted back to her father. She hated it when they did that. Not because she hated the thoughts, but because she hated him. It wasn't something she was proud of, but it was the truth. And if there was one thing her father had instilled in her, it was the value of truth. A reporter's stock in trade, he was so fond of saying. A person is only as good as his word, never any better, never any worse. It was perhaps this fact, more than any other, that helped make Julia Davis Preston one of the fast-rising prosecutors in Atlanta's DA office. She was tough, uncompromising, and, above all, a woman of integrity. Everyone knew it. And in this day, or in this age of corrupt politics and voter cynicism, some folks were already considering the possibility of grooming her for office. She glanced at her watch. She glanced at her watch. It was 4:40 a.m. She closed her eyes, hoping sleep would return. They'd be landing in LA in 2 hours. Then it would be a matter of renting a car and heading up the coast for the Conejo Valley Medical Center, a hospital in Thousand Oaks, not far from Camarillo, where 4 days earlier, her father had been in a serious car accident. Critical head trauma, they said. Extensive internal injuries. Initially, they hadn't expected him to live through that first night. Somehow he had, but no one gave any hope for his recovery. Today, this evening, sometime very soon, he would die. But that's not why Julia was heading back to California. She'd barely spoken to the man in 5 years, and she was in no hurry to race to his side for some sort of artificial reconciliation. She was in no mood for a teary-eyed forgiveness scene with a comatose patient who couldn't hear and wasn't interested. No, that's not why she was headed home. If she had her way, she wouldn't show up until the funeral. If then. Julie was heading home because a few years earlier, when she'd graduated from law school, her father had had the bright idea of giving her power of attorney. It was an honor she had immediately declined, but one that his most recently divorced wife, Rosa, whatever her name was, had said he'd continue to assign to her anyway. An honor that, among other things, made Julia the sole person responsible for deciding whether her father should remain on life support or die. According to the state of California, if a person is unable to make that decision himself, then it falls solely and completely onto the one whom he has assigned the power of attorney. So, entirely against her will, but living by the code her father had instilled, Julia was traveling cross country to view his condition firsthand before giving the doctors permission to pull the plug. She sighed wearily. Even in death he remained to be an intrusion upon her life. Minutes passed, and the dull roar of the plane once again lulled her into semi-sleep. And another dream. But this one was based upon the clear, vivid memories of her 7th birthday. It was a typical Southern California day, bright and clear. They were in a park with rolling hills and 100 trees. Wind blew against her face and through her hair. And she was flying, soaring. "Daddy!" She half laughed, half screamed. "Don't let go!" She gripped the shiny handlebars of her new bicycle with all of her might. "Don't let go! Don't let go of me!" He ran behind her, hand on the seat, keeping her upright. She could hear his panting. "I won't let go of you," he laughed. "I won't let go." They hit a bump and she wobbled. "Daddy!" "I'm right here," he laughed. "Don't let go!" she shrieked. "I'm right here, sweetheart. Trust me. I won't let go." She was sailing, zooming, never traveling so fast in her life. The blades of grass blurred under her wheels. Her heart pounded with thrill and fear until suddenly Julia awoke again. She took a deep breath and brought her seat upright. There'll be no more sleeping. Not for her. And there would be no more dreams, especially of her father. She'd see to that. Even if she stayed up the rest of the night, there would be no more dreaming about the man. He didn't deserve it. Conrad Davis awoke, standing. Time had passed. He knew that, but he didn't know how much. It was still raining, but now it was night. It was night and he was standing in the middle of a city street. There was no Jaguar, no big rig, and no sheer rock wall. Instead, a horn honked as a car raced past him, missing by inches. He spun around and was met by another vehicle coming from the opposite direction. The driver swerved hard and tires squealed. A moment later, there was a sickening thud, followed by tinkling glass and a stuck horn that began to blare. The car had slid into another parked at the curb. Conrad frantically looked about, trying to get his bearings. Some of the shops and buildings appeared familiar, like those in Santa Monica, a beach city he frequented, just west of LA. But many of the others, a siren blasted. He twirled around and was blinded by a pair of high beams coming directly at him. For the briefest moment he froze, unsure what to do. The vehicle jerked to a halt 15 feet away. Doors opened. Dark figures emerged, starting toward him. And that's when Conrad found his legs. He turned, darting to the right, heading for the sidewalk. An oncoming car hit its brakes, swerved hard, and barely missed him, before plowing into the other two disabled vehicles. Voices shouted, others cursed, and the dark figures began pursuit. The blaring horn made it impossible for Conrad to hear what was being yelled. But he knew they were not happy. He hit the curb, stumbling slightly, before turning to his right and racing down the sidewalk. The voices continued, no doubt demanding he stop. But he was not stopping. Not for them. Not for anybody. Where was he? What was going on? Up ahead and across the street he saw Santa Monica's Mayfair Theater. So he was in Santa Monica. But how? And what of these other buildings and shops he didn't recognize? He continued running, passing 2 or 3 pedestrians, kids walking in the rain, long stringy hair, beads embroidered bell bottoms, looking like they stepped right out of the 60s. The footsteps behind him were gaining. To his left was an alley. He turned so hard his feet nearly slipped, but he caught his balance and continued running. "Stop!" the voices behind him shouted. "We order you to stop!" Conrad bore down. He wasn't sure how much farther he could go. It had been a long time since he sprinted like this. His lungs were already crying out for air. Headlights swept in and bounced behind him, illuminating the alley. He heard a car accelerate. He knew he couldn't outrun it. It would be over in seconds. He'd be struck from behind, knocked to the ground, maybe run over. The car roared closer. Then out of the corner of his left eye he could see the headlights. Instead of hitting him, it was pulling beside him. "Get in!" another voice shouted. He turned to see an old Volkswagen bus, hand-painted with fluorescent flowers. And the passenger's window was rolled down, and a black kid with a full-blown afro was shouting, "Get in!" Now he heard other voices, younger. "Come on, jump in, hurry!" The bus pulled ahead to reveal 2 more kids, a guy and a girl, dressed in hippie garb similar to the pedestrians he'd seen. They leaned out the open side door, reaching for him. "Take my hand!" they shouted. "Come on, man! They're right behind you!" There was a loud thump on the back of the bus, then another. The kids looked back past Conrad in wide-eyed fear. "Stop!" a voice behind him shouted. It was less than 2 yards away. "I order you to stop!" Another thump, this time followed by the shattering of glass. "Oh, man!" the girl moaned. She turned to the driver, shouting, "The pigs just busted your taillight, man!" "Take my hand!" Her companion reached out further to Conrad. "Take it now!" Conrad had no choice. Whoever pursued him had bats or rocks or something equally as painful. And these kids, well, at least they wanted to help. He threw them another glance. "Take my hand, man! Take my hand!" It was now or never. He veered toward the VW bus, then tried leaping inside. Unfortunately, tried was the very operative word. It wasn't as easy as it looked. He barely caught his left knee on the edge before the weight of the rest of his body began twisting him away, pulling him off. There was nothing he could do except hope he'd roll free of the wheels and not fall under them. That's when each kid grabbed him by an arm and pulled with all their might. He wasn't a heavy man, but heavy enough. At last they succeeded, and he flew into the bus, landing face first into a green shag carpeting, gasping for air. "We got him!" the kid shouted. "Step on it, man! Let's go! Let's go!" The bus accelerated as they shut the door. "You okay, mister?" The young woman leaned over him. "You all right?" Conrad wanted to answer, but at the moment he had more important things to do, like breathe. The bus continued to bounce and sway as the young man from the back shouted directions. "Right up there! Turn right up there, man!" When he'd finally caught his breath, Conrad attempted to sit up. Here, let me help, the girl said. She was a sweet thing. 17, 18, straight blonde hair, peasant blouse pulled off the shoulders, and bracelets. Lots of jingling bracelets. There were no seats in the back, just the green shag carpeting, a mattress with a coarse Mexican blanket pulled across it, and 8-track tapes. A half-dozen 8-track tapes scattered along the side. Beads swayed back and forth over the windows, and a sweet, pungent odor filled the air. Although Conrad hadn't smelled it in years, he immediately recognized it as pot. "Where am I?" he asked. "You don't know where you are?" the blonde said. "Am I dead? Am I in heaven?" The group broke into laughter. "That's a good one, man," the kid from up front chuckled. "No, mister, you ain't dead. At least not yet." "But we could definitely show you some heaven," the young man beside him said as he pulled out a few pills from his leather vest. Conrad recognized them for what they were. No thanks, I don't, Not your thing," the kid smiled. "No." He shrugged. "That's cool." Conrad's head swam. What's going on? A dream? A hallucination? No, this was too real. He glanced out the window, and the buildings, some looked so familiar. He'd spent a lot of time in Santa Monica. In fact, weren't they on... Yeah, they were on Arizona Street, heading east. He turned back to the blonde. "Is this Santa Monica?" "Sure is," she smiled. Her eyes were bloodshot and watery. She either had a bad case of allergies or was stoned. Conrad guessed the latter. The kid beside her called up to the driver. "Turn right up here at 3rd. Conrad looked back at out the window. Actually, he cleared his throat. You can't turn right at 3rd. It's the mall. The what? The outdoor mall. It's been there since the 80s. Nice pants, the girl said. Suddenly, Conrad was distracted by a playful hand on his leg. What are they? These, Conrad glanced down. Just some, Dockers. Waters? Dockers. Never heard of them. The leather-vested youth wrapped his arm around the girl's shoulder, just in case there was any miscommunication. Crystal here. She wants to be a clothes designer. Pretty good, too. Made me this vest. He reached down and lifted the beaded tassels along its edge. Conrad nodded and looked back out the window. They were at 3rd Street, and to his astonishment, making a right. There was no mall. Just a continuation of the street. So what were the pigs after you for? The driver called back. Pigs? Our esteemed law enforcement officers. I'm not sure. Could be anything these days, the kid with the afro said. They're so jumpy with the protesters and all. Maybe they saw those UFO things too, the girl offered. UFOs? Conrad asked. If that's where they were, her boyfriend interjected. Or excuse me, if that's what they were, her boyfriend interjected. He looked through the windshield and suddenly called, Hold on, that's it up there. He pointed ahead. Right there, man. Pull up right there, man. Got it, the driver answered as he slowed the van and pulled it to a stop. They were in front of a run-down, seedy building. Blue cinder block walls, front steps covered in green astroturf, bright pink doors overhead. A neon sign, partially burned out, blinking, Motul, Motul, Motul. All right, the kid with the afro announced as he opened the door and stepped outside. Everyone stay cool. Till I find out what's happening. He headed up the steps into the lobby. Conrad glanced down the street. He was sure this is just where the mall had been. In fact, some evenings, just to unwind, he'd come down here to hit the bookshop, listen to the musicians, and sip a cafe latte while watching the street entertainers. Where was he? What was going on? And who were these kids, these throwback to the 60s? Up on the billboard just down the street, a woman stood in a black one-piece bathing suit, drinking a bottle of cola. Above her, the slogan read, "Keep tab with the tab." Conrad closed and reopened his eyes. That's what it said. Keep tab with the tab. And the bottle she was drinking from had the tab written on it. Tab? Wasn't that the diet soft drink of the 60s? He glanced down the street at the passing autos and those parked along the curb. As far as he could tell, there wasn't a late model in the bunch. Nothing past 1970. And the license plates? He squinted at the license tab of a nearby American Rambler. It read, April 1970. What was going on? Was someone playing a joke? Was he losing his mind, or had he... No. He pushed the thought out of his head. Again he found himself looking back up at the billboard. It was crazy. And he was embarrassed even to think it. But these kids, their van, the disappearance of the mall, the cars, this billboard, was it possible? No. It was just a dream. It was just a dream and an elaborate hallucination. No way could he as possibly have traveled back in... Alright, the kid with the afro called to them as he stepped out the lobby. They stay there in the back in the service room where they do the laundry. Laundry? The blonde asked. That's what they said. All the rooms are booked, so they gave him a cot and a couple blankets in the laundry room. Just leave the bus there, it's cool. The driver nodded, turned off the ignition, and the group piled out. Conrad joined them, unsure what to do, what questions to ask. They walked past the lobby and drove They walked past the lobby and down the crumbling sidewalk beside the rooms. There was the faint tinkling of bells on someone's shoes and the jangling of the girls' bracelets. Conrad turned to the kid in the leather vest and asked, "You said you saw UFOs?" "Not one," the boy corrected. "Hundreds of them. They lit up the sky." "No kidding." "But they really weren't spaceships," the blonde explained. But they really weren't spaceships, the blonde explained. That's her voice. "More like people. Big, glowing people. Filling the whole sky." "Like angels or something," her boyfriend agreed. "Really blew our minds." Conrad nodded. "Did they say something?" "Yeah," the boy answered. "We're out on the beach grooving with the sunset when this big glowing giant, he's like suddenly standing in front of us." "Giant?" Conrad repeated. The blonde nodded. And we're like really scared. Big time." Her boyfriend agreed. "Bad scene." "Then what happened?" "Then he started speaking," the boyfriend said. "He tells us not to be afraid, and he's bringing good news for everyone in the world." Good news?" "Yeah, he says that right here at this motel, some sort of ruler is being born and he's gonna save us. Said we'd recognize him could he be wrapped in a bunch of bath towels." Conrad frowned. "Did he have a name? Did he give this ruler a name?" The boyfriend shrugged. "Don't remember, but suddenly the whole sky like lights up. with thousands, maybe a million of these glowing guys, and they all start saying glory to God, and what? And to those that please him, major peace. The story was starting to have an eerie ring of familiarity. Then what? Conrad said. Then nothing, the boy shrugged. Then they were gone. The girl nodded. Pretty trippy, huh? Here we are, the kid with the afro announced. The group slowed to a stop outside the very last door in the back. It was marked employees only. The kid with the afro reached out and gave a knock. Nothing. He tried again. A moment later, the door cracked open. A young man in his early 20s stuck out his head. We've, the kid in the afro cleared his throat. We've, come to see the baby. The young man peered at him suspiciously. Then to the group behind him. He looked worn, tired, and very frightened. Who told you? He asked. The kid was hard-pressed to find the words. The glowing guys at the beach, they said that he was here. A girl's voice came faintly from inside. Conrad couldn't make out what she said, but a moment later the young man opened the door wider. He took a half step outside and glanced around the parking lot to make sure there was no others. When he was satisfied, he stepped back and pushed the door wider. Silently, almost reverently, the young people shuffled in, Conrad bringing up the rear. And there, under the flickering lights of a fluorescent bulb, was a young girl, about the same age as the blonde. She lay on a cot wedged between several dirty laundry carts and a beat-up washer and dryer. Her raven hair was damp and plastered against her face, and she looked even more exhausted than the young man. But despite the exhaustion, her deep sapphire eyes held a look of triumph and indefiable peace. Because there in her arms, wrapped in worn bath towels, was her newborn baby boy. And that's where we're gonna stop for today. What did you think about it? Let me know what you thought about it. This book is one of my favorites, and you'll soon see why. I'm sure you're already seeing why. This book is really, really good. I hope you really enjoy it. But I'm actually going to go ahead and log off. I'm going to go ahead and put up the next date that we're going to do. If you guys want to, go ahead. I'm going to put up a poll. Actually, that'll be better. And tell me if you guys would like to do the next chapter tomorrow, or we could do it on Monday, and then we'll go on from there. Let me know. Yeah, I'll go ahead and post that poll up now. God bless you all. Have a good night, and get ready for chapter 2. God bless.